Hello again! Max Bright at Lower Umpqua Library, bringing you the next video in our virtual science program. In today's video, we're going to look at air friction, or drag. Understanding how objects moving through the air can be affected by the air. In a previous video, we looked at how some objects are moved by gravity. We held a basketball and a tennis ball, and we observed that even though the basketball has more mass than the tennis ball, they are accelerated, pulled down by gravity at exactly the same time. Let's go ahead and see that again. 3, 2, 1. A tie every single time. The air around them isn't changing how these two objects move. The basketball has a lot of mass. It's also much bigger. The tennis ball has less mass, but it's also smaller. This isn't the case for every single object. For example, here I have a coffee filter, basically a piece of very thin paper. This coffee filter doesn't have very much mass, but its area is very large for how little mass it has. And so as gravity tries to accelerate and pull down this paper, the air around it is going to change how this object moves. Let's drop it at the same time as the tennis ball and see how these objects move differently. 3, 2, 1. The tennis ball bounced back up, hit the ground and bounced back up before the coffee filter made it to the ground. Both were pulled down by gravity, but the coffee filter was slowed down, being pushed up by the air as the coffee filter moved through it. Now there are things we can do to help the coffee filter not feel the force of air, not feel that push by air. The first thing we can try doing is have more coffee filters. So here I have a stack of 25 coffee filters. So now I have more mass, but the area, the size of these things, is about the same. So now let's see what happens when something with more mass but the same area tries to move through the air. 3, 2, 1. The stack of coffee filters hits the ground first. It's not affected by the air as much as the single coffee filter. So having more mass means you're less affected by the air around you. We can try one other thing. Instead of changing the mass, let's change the area. So I'm going to take this coffee filter and I'm going to fold it. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to fold it in half again. I'm going to take this coffee filter and make a little tiny square out of it. Get all nice and tightly packed. There we go. So the same coffee filter as before, but now less area. So the same mass, but less area. If I drop these at the same time now, 3, 2, 1. The little square hit the ground first. It wasn't affected by the air as it moved through. Let's compare it back to the tennis ball. So let's take that square of coffee filter, drop it at the same time as the tennis ball. 3, 2, 1. And they hit the ground at the same time. So in order to not be affected by air, you either have to have more mass or less area. So how can we use air friction to do something fun? Well, what we could do is we could make a parachute. Air friction is actually how parachutes work. So let me show you what we're going to make. We're going to make a coffee filter with some string and another coffee filter folded up into a square. The coffee filter that's in a square we know would be pulled down by gravity without any effect from air. And then the string attached to the other coffee filter is going to let air interact with this coffee filter and change how the square moves. So if I toss this in the air, did you see that parachute down? Let's try that one more time. As the parachute opens up, it catches air and it allows this square to float slowly to the ground. So let's go ahead and make a parachute. Come to the library and pick up your own air friction kit, and in it, you will have 2 pieces of string and 2 coffee filters. Now we're going to do the same thing with one of those coffee filters and fold it into a square. Let's go ahead and do this together. So I'm going to take it, and first, being a circle, I'm going to fold it in half. So fold it in half, and now I have a semicircle, half circle, right? Keep folding it in half all the way down till it's a strip. And then I'm going to keep taking the ends and folding them to the center. So fold it to the center, take those ends, fold them to the center again. And before I fold it in half, I'm going to take the 2 pieces of string and lay that right down the middle of my coffee filter and then fold it in half. So those 2 strings will hang out of both ends of my square of coffee filter. I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of tape. Hopefully you have some tape at home. And I'm going to go ahead and tape that square so that way it won't open anymore. So now it's a good square with string out of each end. The next thing I want to do is see which ends are opposites. So if I pull on this part of the string, I see this part is moving. So these 2 ends are connected. These 2 ends are connected, and these 2 ends are connected. When I tape these onto the next coffee filter, I'm going to make sure that ends that are opposite go on opposite sides of the coffee filter. So grab some more tape. I'm going to go ahead and tape one end here. Okay. And then the other end that's attached to that same string, I'm going to make sure to tape all the way on the opposite side. There we go. 2 more strings. And now, instead of doing the left and right side, I'm going to tape it to the top and to the bottom. So there's one at the top, and then the other one at the bottom, exactly opposite of that previous string. There we go. All right. Last thing before we start throwing it is let's make sure that all the strings are about the same length. If the parachute doesn't seem to be flat and even, I'm going to pull on strings a little bit to try to make them all the same length. All right, that looks good to me. Let's go ahead and try out our parachute. 3, 2, 1, toss it in the air, and look at that. Oh, that's great. You don't have to throw it in the air, but it is a lot of fun. You can also just step up high somewhere and drop it that way too. The air interacts with that top coffee filter, causing the whole parachuter to slowly fall to the ground. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me for another science video. Please be sure to come by the library and pick up your own parachute air friction kit. See more videos at our website, luld.org, and call us if you have any questions at 541-271-3500. I'll see you all at the library and in the next video. Bye!